Blood dripped through the rancher's fingers as he pressed against his daughter's torn side. Dust clung to her pale face, her breath shallow, each gasp weaker than the last. Then, quietly, firmly, a boy's voice cut through the panic. "Sir, I can heal your wounded daughter." The rancher's head snapped up. An Apache boy, no older than 12, stood in the doorway. His hands were empty, but his eyes carried a strange fire. Could a child really save her? What did he mean by heal? And why did his voice sound so certain when even the doctor had shaken his head? The rancher froze, torn between rage and desperate hope. The room smelled of iron and sweat. The girl lay on the table, her dress torn, a crimson patch spreading fast across her ribs. Lantern light flickered over her fragile frame. Every cough brought a splatter of red, every whisper fainter than the last. The doctor wiped his brow, his hands trembling. "Head's too deep, she won't see morning." "No," the rancher barked, slamming his fist against the table. His voice cracked. "There must be something." The doctor shook his head, weary. "I've done all I can. Pray, if you believe." The rancher's world blurred. His daughter, his only child, slipping away before his eyes. And then came the voice, "Sir, I can heal your wounded daughter." It was steady, not pleading, not meek. A boy's voice, sure of itself. The rancher turned. In the doorway stood a young Apache, barefoot, clothes worn thin, dust clinging to his skin. His dark eyes met the rancher's without fear. The rancher's hand shot to his revolver. "Get out!" His voice was hoarse, raw with grief. "This isn't your place." The boy didn't move. "I know the herbs. The earth gives them. She can live." The doctor scoffed. "Ridiculous. He's a child." "What can he do?" But the boy stepped further in, his small frame cutting through the flickering lamplight. "I've seen worse wounds close. My people taught me, if you do nothing, she dies. If you let me try, maybe she breathes tomorrow." The rancher's chest heaved, torn between fury and despair. His revolver shook in his hand. The girl coughed again, blood seeping between her lips. Her eyes fluttered, pleading, though she hadn't the strength to speak. The boy whispered, "Softer now. Let me try." The silence pressed heavy. Even the doctor said nothing, his mouth tight, his pride paling before the sight of death creeping closer. The rancher's revolver lowered. His hand shook, not from anger, but from surrender. He stepped aside. The boy moved quickly, with a grace not of fear, but of urgency. He knelt at the girl's side, touched the blood-stained wound with gentle fingers, then looked up. Hot water, clean cloth, and a knife. The doctor bristled. "A knife! He'll kill her faster." The rancher's voice cut through, low and dangerous. "Get him what he asks." The doctor hesitated, but the rancher's glare left no room for argument. Soon a basin steamed, cloth stacked, the knife laid bare on the table. The boy nodded once, as if this were ordinary work. "Hold her steady," he said. The rancher froze. His heart hammered. Could he trust this child? But his daughter stirred, her faint voice barely a whisper. "Fathers, please." His hands clenched, then loosened. He moved to her side, holding her shoulder as the boy pressed the cloth against her wound. The boy whispered words under his breath, prayers or chants, the rancher could not tell. His fingers worked with precision, pressing herbs ground from small pouches he carried at his belt, herbs the rancher had never seen. The smell was sharp, bitter, but clean. The doctor leaned closer despite himself, frowning. "What is that?" The boy didn't answer. His focus was unbroken, his movements steady as if guided by something beyond himself. He cut away torn flesh, pressed the poultice deep, and bound the wound with strips of cloth so tight the bleeding slowed. The girl gasped, arching under the pain. The rancher tightened his hold, whispering, "Breathe, child. Stay with me." Minutes dragged like hours. Sweat rolled down the boy's face, but his hands never faltered. At last the bleeding stopped. Her breath, though shallow, steadied. Her pulse, faint but present, beat on beneath her skin. The boy leaned back, his chest rising and falling. His hands were stained with blood, but his eyes held that same strange fire. "She lives," he said simply. The rancher stared, disbelief warring with hope. He looked at the doctor, whose face was pale, lips pressed tight. The man who had given up. "She lives?" the rancher repeated, his voice cracking as if tasting the words for the first time. But before relief could take root, a sharp sound cracked outside, the pounding of hooves, angry voices, the clatter of rifles. The boy's head snapped toward the window, eyes narrowing. "They've come." The rancher's blood ran cold. "Who?" The boy's answer was soft, but heavy as stone. "Men who don't want her saved." The pounding of hooves grew louder, rattling the walls, shaking dust from the rafters. Outside, voices barked orders, sharp, angry, closing in. The rancher moved to the window, lifting the curtain with the edge of his revolver. 7 cowboys circled his house, rifles gleaming in the fading light, their horses stamped, restless, steam rising from their nostrils. The boy's face stayed calm, too calm. "They followed me." The rancher spun. "What did you bring to my door?" The boy didn't flinch. "I brought you hope. They want it gone." The doctor whispered, panic creeping into his voice. "If they know she still breathes, they'll finish what was started." The rancher's grip tightened on his gun. "Over my dead body." A voice rang out from outside, low and mocking. "Reckon it's true, McAllister. Your girl should be buried by now. Instead, we hear tell some Apache brats playing doctor." The rancher stiffened. He knew that voice, Harlan Briggs, one of the richest cattlemen in the county, and the cruelest. A man who'd always hated the McAllisters, always saw land and blood as things to be taken. The boy's gaze sharpened. "If they take her, all you've done is for nothing." The rancher's daughter stirred on the table, her lips parting. "Father?" Her voice was a fragile thread, but alive. The rancher leaned close, unbrushing her damp hair back. "Stay with me, child. Don't move, don't speak." The window shattered. A bullet tore through the frame, splinters flying across the room. The doctor dove for cover with a cry. The rancher snapped to the boy, "Get down!" But the boy didn't move. Instead, he reached for a leather pouch at his side, pulling out a small clay rattle, painted with faded red lines. He shook it once. The sound was soft, almost like rain. The rancher hissed, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" "Calling silence," the boy answered. His voice was calm, steady, older than his years. Another voice outside. "McAllister, hand over the girl, or burn with her." The rancher's jaw clenched. His gun felt heavy, useless against so many rifles. But surrender was death. The boy's eyes met his. "If you want her to live, you must trust me, not your bullets." "Me?" The rancher stared at him, heart pounding, torn between disbelief and desperation. The boy's hands were steady, his gaze unwavering. Another crash, boots slammed against the door. The hinges groaned. The rancher turned, fury blazing. "Then show me what you can do." The boy knelt by the wounded girl, pressing his palms flat against the bloody bandages. He whispered words low and rhythmic, a chant that filled the room with strange weight. The rattle shook once more, the sound weaving through his words. The girl's breathing deepened, steadied. Her eyelids fluttered, not from weakness, but from some unseen strength stirring within. The rancher froze, his revolver lowered an inch. What's happening?" The boy's voice was a whisper. "The earth answers. She is not ready to leave." The door buckled, splinters cracking as men pushed from the other side. One more blow would break it. The doctor scrambled up, eyes wide. "They'll kill us all," the rancher barked back. "Then stand or shut your mouth." The boy opened his eyes, the chant fading. "She can survive the night, but only if we do." The final slam shattered the door. Cowboys flooded in, rifles raised, faces hard with dust and cruelty. Harlan Briggs led them, his smile sharp as a blade. "Well, well," he sneered, eyes landing on the girl, then the boy. "Guess the rumors were true. Seems death's been delayed." "Can't have that, McAllister." The rancher stepped forward, revolver aimed straight at Briggs. His voice was iron. "One step closer, and I'll drop you where you stand." Briggs chuckled, lifting his hands mockingly. "A lone man against 7 rifles. Brave, but foolish." Behind him, the men shifted, rifles tightening in their grip. The boy rose slowly from the girl's side, stepping into the lamplight. His small frame looked fragile, Yet something in his eyes made even Briggs pause. "You won't take her," the boy said. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the room like steel. Briggs's smile faltered for the first time. "And who are you to say so?" The boy answered without hesitation. "The one who holds her life." The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the crackle of the lantern flame. Briggs's eyes narrowed, rage sparking. He lifted his rifle. "Then I'll end yours first." The rancher's finger tightened on the trigger, and then from outside came another sound, low, growing, the thunder of more hooves, but not Briggs's men. Every head turned toward the open door. Dust rose on the horizon. The boy's eyes lit with fire. "They've come." The sound grew louder, rolling over the plains like thunder. Every man in the room stiffened, rifles twitching toward the open doorway. Briggs barked at his men. "Hold steady!" Could be more of McAllister's friends, but the rancher shook his head. His voice was low, dangerous. "I didn't call for anyone." The boy stood still, eyes fixed on the doorway. His small hand tightened around the rattle at his belt. "Not friends, not enemies, but not yours either." The riders came into view, half a dozen figures cutting through the dusk, their horses lean, swift, covered in dust. Torches blazed in their hands, fire streaking across the fading sky. Briggs's face twisted. "Apache," the doctor gasped. "God help us." The rancher's revolver stayed aimed at Briggs, but his heart pounded. If they joined the cattlemen, he was finished. If they sided with the boy, he didn't know which was worse. The Apaches rode in hard, pulling up in a cloud of dirt just beyond the broken doorway. Their leader, a tall man with scars carved across his cheek, dismounted first. His gaze cut straight to the boy. "You should not be here," the man said in Apache, voice like gravel. The boy stepped forward, shoulders squared despite his size. "She was dying. I couldn't let her go." The man's jaw clenched. His eyes flicked to Briggs and his men, then to the girl bleeding on the table. His nostrils flared as he exhaled slow, heavy. Briggs spat in the dirt. "Perfect. A nest of rats." He raised his rifle. "Let's clear him out." But before he could fire, the Apache leader raised a hand. His warriors followed. Bows half drawn, arrows trained on the cowboys. The torches lit their faces, shadows dancing across their eyes. The rancher whispered, almost to himself, "God above." The boy lifted his chin. "You taught me that life is sacred. Was I wrong to save hers?" The leader's eyes softened for a breath, then hardened again. He looked at the girl, pale but alive. "No." "But you've drawn wolves," Briggs sneered. "I've got rifles. They've got sticks and string. Do the math." The rancher snapped, "Shut your mouth, Briggs." But Briggs only grinned wider, waving his rifle. "You can kill me, McAllister, but you won't kill us all. And when my men are done, they'll burn this house with every Apache inside it." The room went tight as wire. Rifles, bows, revolvers, all aimed, all waiting for a spark. The girl moaned on the table, a faint sound, but enough. The boy moved to her side, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. He looked up at the Apache leader. "Her spirit still clings. If we fight now, she won't survive." The leader's jaw flexed. "And if we do nothing, these men will kill her anyway." The rancher's eyes locked with his daughter's. The tiniest flicker of breath brushed past her lips, fragile but real. Rage flooded him, burning hotter than fear. He stepped forward, revolver steady, voice like iron. "Then we buy her time." Briggs laughed, ugly and sharp. "Buy time? With what?" "Your life." The rancher's aim didn't waver. "With blood, if I must." The boy's voice cut through the tension, softer but sharper than any threat. Not his blood, theirs. All eyes swung to him. The small figure, standing firm in the lamplight, unafraid. Briggs scoffed. "You're a child." The boy's gaze never left him. "So were you once, but you learned nothing." That flicker of shame, Briggs hid it under a growl. "Enough talk. End this." His rifle jerked upward. The rancher fired first. The crack split the night. Briggs staggered back, his rifle clattering to the floor, a red bloom spreading across his shoulder. He howled, clutching the wound, his face twisting in pain and hate. Chaos erupted. Rifles barked, arrows sang. Glass shattered, wood splintered. The house became a storm of fire and steel. The doctor cowered behind the table, arms over his head. The rancher dropped another man with a shot to the chest, then ducked as bullets tore through the walls. The Apache leader drew his knife, cutting down a cowboy who burst through the door with a roar. His warriors loosed arrows that struck true, dropping men before they reached the porch, and through it all, the boy moved with startling calm. He dragged a blanket across his wounded herbs, shielding the girl from flying splinters. His chants rose again, low and steady, a strange counterpoint to the thunder of guns. The rancher's ears rang, smoke filling his lungs. He looked at the boy, at the way his small body shielded his daughter, and something inside him broke. This child, this Apache, was risking everything for a girl not his own. The boy looked back once, eyes blazing with fire beyond his years. "Keep them from the door," the rancher snarled, raising his revolver again. "You have my word." Outside, the clash raged hotter. Men screamed, horses reared, torches fell to the dirt. The settlement was a battlefield, and inside the ranch house, every second was stolen against death's hand. But as the smoke thickened, a darker truth pressed in. Briggs was down, but not out. His men were many, his hate endless. And no one knew how long the girl or the boy could hold on. Smoke coiled through the rafters, stinging eyes, choking throats. Outside, the horses screamed as torches fell and caught the dry grass. Flames licked toward the porch, shadows writhing against the walls. The doctor gagged, coughing into his sleeve. "We'll burn alive," the rancher barked back. "Shut it!" He reloaded with shaking hands, revolver clicking shut, just as another cowboy burst through the doorway. One shot rang out. The intruder slammed against the frame and fell limp to the floor. The Apache leader pressed his back to the wall, blade slick with blood. "They'll drive us out with fire. Smoke will do what bullets can't." The boy knelt at the girl's side, pressing the herbs deeper against her wound. His lips moved in that low chant again. The girl stirred, eyes fluttering open for the briefest moment. Her gaze drifted toward her father. A whisper, faint as breath. "Father." He rushed to her side, grabbing her hand, rough and trembling. "I'm here, child. Hold on." But the smoke thickened. Already, the lantern's light looked dim behind the haze. Briggs's voice rose outside, ragged with pain but strong with hate. "Burn them out. I want every Apache corpse at my feet before dawn." The boy lifted his head, eyes fierce despite his youth. "If the fire spreads, she dies before they reach us." The rancher's gaze darted between the boy and the Apache leader. "Then what? We can't fight flames with bullets." The leader's eyes narrowed. "The well?" He jerked his chin toward the back door. "Buckets, wet cloths, we buy time." The rancher nodded. He grabbed a pail and bolted into the night, choking on smoke as he dashed to the well. Arrows hissed overhead, cowboys shouting in rage. A bullet sparked against the stone rim as he hauled water up, splashing it across the porch beams before they caught. Behind him, Briggs shouted, "Shoot him down!" 2 rifles barked. The rancher dove behind the well, water spilling, dirt kicking up around him. His heart hammered, but somehow he was still breathing. Back inside, the boy spread the damp cloth over the girl's wound, sealing the herbs. He whispered, "The earth takes the heat, not her." His small hands trembled, but his eyes never left her face. The rancher staggered back in, soaked and coughing, another bucket in hand. "Won't hold long," he rasped. The leader grunted. "Long enough if we cut their numbers." The doctor peered through the smoke, face pale. "There are too many. We'll never—" "Shut up!" the rancher roared. His revolver cracked again, muzzle flash lighting the haze. Heard a cowboy's silhouette crumpled at the threshold. The Apaches moved like shadows, slipping through smoke, blades and arrows flashing. Each strike was silent, efficient, as if death itself had walked among them. But for every man that fell, 2 more seemed to circle in. And still the fire grew. Flames crackled along the fence line, sparks drifting onto the roof. The rancher looked up, dread clawing his chest. "If the roof catches—" The boy's voice cut through, calm. "Certain? It won't, not yet." The rancher turned, The boy was on his knees, hands pressed to the floorboards, whispering again. His rattle shook once, twice, the sound swallowed by smoke. The flames at the roof's edge faltered, sputtering back to embers. The rancher stared. "What did you do?" The boy looked up, sweat streaking his dirt-stained face. "I asked the fire to wait." Before the rancher could speak, a new sound split the night, a horn, sharp and cruel, echoing across the plains. The Apache leader stiffened. His voice dropped to a growl. "More are coming." The boy's small shoulders tensed, his eyes going hard. Not just men, horses, wagons. They'll bring oil. The rancher's stomach sank. Oil meant no defense, no prayer, one spark, and the whole ranch would be ash. Outside, Briggs's laughter rose, hoarse and mad. "You hear that, McAllister? That's the sound of your world burning. And when it does, I'll drag out that Apache brat with my own hands." The rancher's grip on his revolver turned white. He looked at his daughter, her chest barely rising beneath the cloth, looked at the boy, eyes burning like coals in the smoke, looked at the Apache leader, silent as stone, knife dripping in his fist. For the first time, the rancher felt the weight of it, his bloodline, his land, his child's life, balanced on the shoulders of strangers, strangers who had every reason to hate him, yet stood between him and ruin. And then, through the haze, a single thought struck him cold. What if the boy's healing was the only reason his daughter still breathed? And what if Briggs already knew? The horn sounded again, closer now, followed by the heavy rumble of wagon wheels. Horses snorted, iron-shod hooves striking sparks from the stones. The ground itself seemed to tremble as the new riders approached. Briggs's men cheered through the smoke, voices rough with relief. "Wagons are here! Burn them out!" The rancher's jaw clenched. His revolver hung heavy at his side. He'd fought raiders, rustlers, men with grudges, but never fire in barrels. The boy rose from the floorboards, his rattle still in hand. His voice was calm, too calm for his years. "If they pour oil, no wall will stand. Your land, your cattle, your daughter, ash." The Apache leader's face darkened. "They mean to make a lesson of you." The rancher turned to him, raw fury in his eyes. "Of me, or of her?" He jerked his chin at the boy. "This is about him, isn't it?" The boy met his gaze without flinching. "It is about her. I swore she would live." "They would rather she didn't." The doctor choked on smoke, clutching a wet rag over his mouth. "We can't fight barrels of oil. We'll die before we can reload." The leader barked. "Then we strike first. Take the wagons before they reach the house." The rancher cursed under his breath. "There's 7 men outside, another half-dozen coming with wagons. That's suicide." The boy stepped closer, eyes burning in the haze. "Not if you trust me." The rancher glared. "Trust you? You're a child." The boy's voice cut like steel. "A child keeping your daughter alive." Silence pressed in, broken only by the crackle of flames. The rancher looked at his daughter, pale and still, her lips moving faintly, as if whispering to some unseen hand. Then he looked back at the boy, and in that moment, something shifted. The rancher holstered his revolver. "Tell me what to do." The boy nodded once, as if he'd expected no less. He turned to the Apache leader, speaking quickly in their tongue. The man's eyes widened, then narrowed with reluctant respect. He barked orders to his warriors. The rancher demanded, "What's the plan?" The boy's eyes gleamed in the smoke. "The wagons carry oil. Oil burns, but it also blinds. We'll use their fire against them." Before the rancher could ask how use, the ground shook again. Wagons creaked into view, barrels stacked high, torchlight flickering on their iron rims. Cowboys rode alongside, faces set in grim lines. Briggs stumbled forward, clutching his bleeding shoulder, voice rasping, "Soak the walls, burn it to the ground." The men leapt from their saddles, rolling barrels toward the porch. Flames licked higher at the fences, sparks raining on the roof. The rancher raised his revolver, but the boy stopped him with a hand. "Not yet," the boy whispered. "Wait for the spill." The first barrel split open, black oil gushing across the dirt, slick and stinking. Another followed, then another, dark rivers running toward the steps. The boy raised his rattle, shaking it once, twice. His voice rose into the smoke. words in a tongue the rancher couldn't know. The Apache warriors echoed with their own cries, a sound that chilled the cowboys to their bones. Then the boy shouted, "Now!" Arrows loosed, whistling through the dark. One struck a torch, spinning it from a cowboy's grip. It fell into the oil, flames erupting skyward. The spill became a wall of fire, roaring between the house and the wagons. Cowboys cursed, stumbling back as their own barrels caught. Horses screamed, rearing in panic. One wagon toppled, a barrel exploding in a tower of flame. The rancher stared, stunned. "God Almighty!" The boy's face was pale in the firelight, but steady. Their fire, not ours. But the victory was short. Briggs roared in rage, his voice breaking. "Kill them all. I don't care if the flames take you. Kill them." His men surged forward, leaping the burning spill, rifles blazing through smoke and sparks. Bullets punched holes in the walls, glass shattered. The rancher fired back, dropping one man before ducking low. The Apache leader cut another down with his blade, blood spraying across the dirt. But more cowboys poured in, undeterred by fire or fear. The doctor screamed, "They'll overrun us!" The boy pulled the blanket tighter over the wounded girl. His chant rose again, louder, a desperate rhythm in the chaos. "Breathe! Hold!" His hands pressed to her chest, and the faintest rise of her lungs answered him. The rancher saw it, felt it, and rage surged like wildfire. He sprang from cover, revolver cracking, each shot fired with the weight of his daughter's fragile breath. The house shook with the storm of battle, smoke, fire, screams. It was no longer a home but a battlefield. And then, above it all, Briggs's voice cut through. "Bring me the boy. Leave the girl. I'll finish her myself." The rancher froze, blood turning cold. Briggs didn't want land, didn't want cattle. He wanted the boy. And if Briggs wanted him that badly, what was the truth this child carried? Bullets tore through the walls, splinters flying, smoke wrapped the room like a shroud. The rancher reloaded fast, sweat dripping down his temples, lungs burning. Outside, Briggs's voice bellowed again, ragged with pain but sharp as a whip. "The boy? Bring me the boy alive!" The rancher froze for a heartbeat, staring at the small figure kneeling over his daughter. The boy's hands were steady, his chant relentless, his eyes glowing in the firelight. Why him? The Apache leader crouched low, dragging a wounded warrior behind the table. His face was tight with suspicion. "Why do they want you, boy?" The child didn't look up. "Because I live where others died." The rancher barked, "Speak plain." The boy finally raised his head, his gaze locked on the rancher, calm, unwavering. "Briggs's men raided our village. They burned everything. Everyone but me. He thinks I carry what his greed cannot buy." The rancher's stomach knotted. "What in God's name does that mean?" The Apache leader's eyes narrowed. "He believes the boy is medicine." The doctor gasped through the smoke. "Medicine? You mean—" A bullet shattered the lamp above them, plunging half the room into shadow. Sparks rained down. The boy's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and certain. "They want what I know, what I am. But they don't care if I live after they take it." The rancher's eyes darted to his daughter, her chest still faintly rising under the boy's hands. Without him, she would already be gone. He felt it in his bones. Outside, Briggs screamed, voice cracking with hate. "Bring me that brat, and the rest of you can walk away, rich men." The cowboys' shouts rose in reply. More boots pounded against the porch, rifles hammering the walls. The rancher's grip on his revolver tightened until his knuckles went white. He spat into the dirt, voice low and bitter. "They'll tear this place apart just to get him," the Apache leader hissed back. "Then we tear them first." The rancher snapped, "Don't you see? If he's what Briggs says, killing won't stop this. More will come. More always come." The boy's chant faltered for the first time. He looked up, face pale but eyes fierce. "Then you must decide. Am I a burden, or am I hers now?" He nodded toward the girl. The words struck like a hammer. The rancher's breath caught. His daughter stirred again, lips moving faintly, whispering a sound almost lost in the roar outside. "Pa!" He gritted his teeth, blinking back the sting in his eyes. She was alive because of this boy. Boots thundered on the porch. Cowboys crashed against the door, shoulders slamming wood, voices howling. The leader growled, "They'll break through." The boy rose suddenly, standing between the door and the girl. His thin frame looked small in the smoky light, but his voice was steady. "If they take me, she dies anyway. If they kill me, she dies faster. You know this." The rancher snarled, "Over my dead body." The boy's face didn't change. That is what Briggs counts on. Outside, Briggs barked again, closer now, voice trembling with rage. "McAllister!" "Hand over that Apache brat. You saved my son once, and remember, tonight I'll pay you back by killing yours." The rancher's blood went cold. His revolver nearly slipped from his hand. The doctor whispered, "His son?" The Apache leader's head jerked toward the rancher. "What is he talking about?" The rancher's face twisted, torn between fury and shame. His voice came rough. "Years ago, I pulled Briggs's boy from a stampede, thought I'd earned his gratitude. Instead, I bought his hate. He can't stand the debt. He wants to balance it with blood." The boy whispered, almost to himself, "Then he will never stop." The pounding at the door grew harder, wood cracking. Smoke rolled thicker. The roof groaned under the weight of flame. The rancher's heart hammered. He looked at the boy, at his dirt-streaked face, his thin frame, the fire in his eyes, at his daughter, pale and trembling, yet clinging to life under his hands. And for the first time, the choice was clear. He raised his revolver high, voice booming over the roar, "If you want him, Briggs, you'll have to bury me first." The cowboys outside howled in fury, slamming against the door harder. The boy's eyes softened, just for a heartbeat. He whispered, "Then we are family." And with a thunderous crack, the front door splintered open. The door exploded inward, wood shards flying like knives. Cowboys stormed through the gap, guns blazing, eyes red from smoke and fire. The rancher fired point blank, the blast throwing a man back against the porch. He swung the revolver toward the next, hammer falling again, but the chamber clicked empty. "Damn it!" He swung the butt of the gun into the nearest cowboy's jaw, bone cracking. The Apache leader moved like a shadow, knife flashing. One man dropped, clutching his throat, gurgling as blood poured through his fingers. The boy didn't flinch. He pressed one hand over the girl's chest, the other gripping the rattle, voice rising into a fierce chant. The sound cut sharp through the chaos, like a drum beating in the marrow. The doctor crawled under the table, eyes wide in terror, muttering prayers to a god he barely believed in anymore. Another cowboy lunged toward the boy. The rancher roared, diving between them, tackling the man to the floor. Fists slammed, knuckles split, blood sprayed. The rancher's voice was raw. "You won't touch him." The man clawed at his throat, but the rancher slammed his head against the boards until he lay still. The boy's chant grew louder, harsher, as if summoning the walls themselves to hold. His young face glistened with sweat, eyes burning like coals. Outside, Briggs bellowed again, "Get the brat!" McAllister's finished, but inside the tide shifted. The Apache warriors struck from the shadows, blades slicing through smoke. One arrow drove clean through a cowboy's back, pinning him to the wall. Another crumpled under the leader's tomahawk, skull splitting with a dull crack. The rancher staggered up, chest heaving. His revolver lay empty in his fist, slick with sweat and blood. He tossed it aside, grabbing a fallen rifle from the ground. Through the haze, he saw Briggs himself at the threshold, face twisted, blood soaking his shoulder. One arm clutched a pistol, the other a torch. His eyes burned with pure madness. "McAllister!" Briggs spat blood, voice shaking with rage. "You're protecting that snake while your own daughter dies." The rancher leveled the rifle, teeth clenched. "She lives because of him," Briggs sneered, stepping into the smoke. "No, she lingers because of lies. That boy's trick is witchcraft, not medicine. When it fails, you'll watch her die screaming." The boy's chant faltered for just an instant, eyes locking with Briggs's. The man sneered, raising the torch higher. "You think you're a healer? You're a curse. I'll snuff you out, and I'll watch that girl choke on your failure." The boy rose slowly, standing between Briggs and the wounded girl. His voice came quiet, steady. You killed my family. You will not take her too. The rancher stepped forward, rifle steady despite his shaking hands. You'll have to shoot through both of us. Briggs's eyes flickered, rage warring with hesitation. Then he snarled, flinging the torch toward the wall. Flames burst upward, the roof timbers crackling as fire spread. The boy's chant rose again, desperate and fierce. The flames wavered, slowed, but they didn't stop. Sweat ran down his temples, lips trembling. The rancher grabbed him by the shoulders. Save your strength for her, leave the fire to me. He barreled toward the blaze, tearing down a burning curtain, stomping it underfoot. The heat scorched his skin, sparks searing holes in his shirt. He cursed and fought, slapping down embers with his bare hands. Behind him, Briggs raised his pistol, aiming at the boy. The rancher spun back, rifle snapping to his shoulder. A single shot roared. Briggs's pistol flew from his grip, blood spurting from his arm. He screamed, falling back against the frame. The boy's voice rang sharp, like steel in the smoke. Leave now, or the fire takes you. Briggs's men wavered, glancing at one another, eyes wide with fear. The fire raged higher, licking across the roof, roaring louder than gunfire. The leader of the Apaches growled, knife dripping red. Decide fast. Burn or run. Briggs glared, clutching his bleeding arm, chest heaving with hate. His voice rasped, hoarse but venomous. This isn't over. You'll all hang for this. He staggered back into the night, his men dragging him toward the wagons. The sound of hoofbeats thundered as they retreated, swallowed by fire and smoke. Silence fell heavy, broken only by the crackle of flames. The rancher collapsed to his knees beside the boy. His hands shook as he reached for his daughter's face. Her breath was shallow but steady. The boy lowered his rattle, voice barely a whisper. She will live. The rancher looked at him, really looked at him, not as an outsider, not as a burden, but as the reason his child still breathed. His voice cracked, raw with something deeper than gratitude. You're mine now, boy. Blood or not, you're mine. The boy blinked, eyes wet in the firelight. He nodded once, silent, but his small hand reached for the rancher's, and as the flames roared higher, the roof groaned above them, timbers ready to give. The roof groaned like a dying beast, smoke pressed down in heavy waves, sparks falling in glowing rain. The rancher looked up just as a beam split, cracking with a thunder that shook the whole house. "Move!" he shouted, grabbing the boy by the arm. The Apache leader barked an order, and his warriors scrambled, dragging the wounded toward the back. The doctor stumbled after them, coughing, face streaked with soot. The girl still lay on the bed, pale and limp, her breath fragile. The boy refused to leave her. He planted his small frame at her side, shaking his head. If she stays, I stay. The rancher snarled, fury rising with the fire. You'll both die. The boy's voice came steady, though his body trembled. Then carry her. Without hesitation, the rancher swept his daughter into his arms. She felt light as feathers, too light, her head lolling against his shoulder. He gritted his teeth, refusing to think of graves. The boy led the way, weaving through smoke. His rattle clutched tight. Each shake sent a harsh rhythm through the crackle, guiding them toward the rear door. Behind them, the roof groaned again. A shower of sparks rained down, catching in the rancher's hair, searing his skin. He hissed but pressed on, eyes locked on the boy's slight figure moving ahead. The door burst open under the Apache leader's boot, slamming outward. Night air rushed in, cool but thick with smoke from the burning yard. They stumbled into the open, the rancher gasping for breath. The girl whimpered faintly against his chest, her first sound in hours. He nearly dropped to his knees from sheer relief, but danger wasn't done. Briggs's men hadn't all fled. A half-dozen lingered near the wagons, faces lit by firelight. They spun at the sight of the escape, rage flashing in their eyes. "There! Don't let them out!" one shouted. Rifles swung up. Muzzles flared. Bullets whipped through the night. The rancher ducked behind the water trough, clutching his daughter tight. Splinters exploded around him, wood cracking under the barrage. The boy dropped low beside him, eyes wide but unflinching. He looked at the rancher. "Give her to me." The rancher blinked, disbelief in his smoke-stung eyes. "What? You fight better without her in your arms. Trust me, she is safer with me." The words stabbed deeper than bullets. The rancher's instincts screamed to hold her, to never let go. But then he saw the boy's hands, small, yes, but steady, sure. The same hands that had pulled her back from death's door. He hesitated only a heartbeat. Then he pressed his daughter into the boy's arms. The boy wrapped her gently, cradling her as if she were glass. He met the rancher's gaze, voice low. "Now fight." The rancher rose, rifle braced, fury roaring through his veins. He fired once, twice, each shot finding flesh. A cowboy staggered, clutching his gut. Another dropped his rifle, howling. The Apache warriors surged forward with a war cry, blades flashing in firelight. The leader slammed a tomahawk into a man's shoulder, dragging him down with brutal force. But Briggs's men fought like cornered wolves, desperate and vicious. One broke through, charging straight for the boy. The boy tightened his grip on the girl, backing toward the shadows. His voice rose again, chanting fiercely, as if words alone could ward off steel. The rancher saw it too late. He roared, lunging, but his rifle was empty. He swung it like a club, striking the cowboy across the head, just as the blade fell short of the boy. The man crumpled. The rancher stood panting, heart hammering, rage burning hot. He turned back to the boy. "You keep her alive," he growled, "and I'll keep you alive." The boy only nodded, his young face solemn in the firelight. Above them, the roof gave one final groan. With a deafening crash, the house collapsed inward, flames leaping skyward in a blazing tower. The men froze, stunned by the inferno. The rancher stared, chest heaving, as years of work, sweat, and memory vanished into smoke. The boy's voice came soft but steady. "Homes can burn. Blood endures." The rancher looked at him, at his daughter cradled in those small, steady arms. For the first time, he believed it. But Briggs was still out there. And if the fire hadn't killed his hate, nothing ever would. The night glowed red with fire, the ranch collapsing into embers behind them. Smoke drifted like a curtain across the yard, lit by the blaze. The Apache warriors tightened their grip on weapons, eyes darting through the haze. And then, hoofbeats. Slow, heavy. Briggs rode out of the smoke on a black stallion, his left arm bleeding, his face twisted and pale. Yet his back was straight, his eyes hard. He looked like a corpse refusing to lie down. The rancher cursed under his breath. He had hoped the fire swallowed him, but Briggs had the stubbornness of a man who hated more than he feared death. Behind Briggs, 3 riders emerged, scarred, silent, rifles across their laps, not the wild rabble from before. These were his killers, the ones he saved for vengeance. Briggs's voice rang across the yard, rough but clear. "McAllister, you think you've won? Look around. Everything you own burns. All you've got left is that little squaw brat clinging to your side." The rancher spat in the dirt. "She's mine. The boy too." Briggs's mouth curled, humorless. "Then you've cursed yourself twice over. I'll gut them both before the dawn." The Apache leader stepped forward, blade glinting. "You'll have to crawl over our bodies first." Briggs ignored him, eyes locked on the rancher. "You owe me, McAllister, a debt you can't pay with bullets. You stole my son's glory when you pulled him from that stampede. You shamed my name, and now you'll choke on it." The rancher's grip tightened on his rifle. His voice was low, steady. "You call saving a life shame. That's why you'll die tonight." The boy, cradling the girl, whispered from behind him, "He fears you. That is why he screams so loud." Briggs's eyes flicked, fury flashing at the child's calm. His horse snorted, stamping the ground. Then, with a roar, he raised his pistol. "Kill them all!" Gunfire erupted. The rancher dropped to one knee, firing into the smoke. A rider toppled from his saddle, tumbling into the dirt. The Apache warriors surged forward, arrows slicing through the haze. One struck a rider square in the throat, but Briggs's killers pressed hard, bullets tearing into the ground near the boy. The rancher spun, shielding him with his body, firing wildly until his rifle clicked empty. The boy's chant rose again, desperate and fierce, his rattle shaking in rhythm with gunfire. The girl's chest heaved, breath ragged but alive. The Apache leader hurled his tomahawk, splitting a man's skull. but another rider charged straight at the boy, pistol aimed. The rancher had no bullets left. He grabbed a fallen lance, bracing. As the rider closed, he lunged forward, driving the point through the man's chest. The horse screamed, rearing, throwing the dying cowboy into the dirt. Briggs dismounted slowly, pistol still in hand, eyes fixed on the boy. Smoke swirled around him, fire behind him, making his shadow stretch like a demon. "Give me that brat," he hissed, "or I'll blow your daughter's brains out before your eyes." The rancher's blood ran cold. He lifted his rifle again, empty. His arms trembled, rage choking him. But before he could speak, the boy stepped forward. Still holding the girl, he faced Briggs directly. His voice was calm, sharp as flint. "You cannot kill what you already lost. Your son lived because of him. Your name rots because of you." Briggs' face twisted, spittle flying as he screamed, "Shut your filthy mouth!" The pistol rose, aimed at the child's head. The rancher lunged, roaring, but he was too far. The boy's chant snapped into a shout. He raised the rattle high, shaking it once, hard. The sound cracked like thunder, cutting through the smoke. The stallion Briggs had ridden shrieked, rearing back in terror. Briggs staggered, aim breaking. The shot went wild, sparking against stone. The Apache leader seized the opening, rushing Briggs with a knife. Steel flashed in the firelight. Briggs twisted, firing again, the shot tearing through the leader's side. But the knife struck deep into Briggs's chest. Both men went down, the leader collapsing in the dirt. Briggs gasping, blood bubbling from his lips. The rancher sprinted forward, kicking the pistol from Briggs's hand. He leveled the empty rifle anyway, voice raw. "It ends here." Briggs coughed blood, sneering even as his strength faded. "You think the boy saves you? He only curses you. The day will come. You'll wish he died tonight." His head fell back, eyes glassing over. His chest stilled. The yard went silent, save for the crackle of fire. The boy stepped closer, the girl still in his arms. His small voice broke the silence. "Your debt is finished." The rancher's breath shuddered out. He dropped the rifle, falling to his knees beside the boy. His hands shook as he touched his daughter's face. She stirred faintly, whispering his name. He looked at the boy again, this strange, fierce child who had faced death without blinking. "Not finished," the rancher said, voice breaking. "It's only beginning." The flames roared higher, and the night closed in, holding them tight between death and survival. The yard was a graveyard of fire and ash. The last of Briggs's men lay scattered, some moaning, most still. The black stallion had bolted into the smoke, leaving its master broken in the dirt. The Apache warriors gathered in a half-circle, silent but watchful. Their leader groaned where he had fallen, clutching his bleeding side. Two men lifted him, steadying him as his face twisted in pain. The rancher knelt in the dirt, daughter limp in his arms, the boy at his side. His chest rose and fell in ragged bursts, every breath tasting of smoke and blood. One warrior stepped forward, scars etched deep across his cheeks. His voice came low, heavy. "Briggs is dead, but death spreads. Men like him have brothers, kin. They will come." The rancher raised his head, eyes burning. "Then I'll face them. Here. Now. I'm not running." The warrior studied him, then turned to the boy. "You stand with him." The boy met his gaze without fear, his arms tightening around the rancher's daughter. "Yes," murmurs rippled through the circle. Some faces hardened with suspicion, others softened with reluctant respect. The wounded leader coughed, blood on his lips. His voice was thin but sharp. "A man who fights beside us, he is no longer only a rancher." He gestured weakly at the boy. "And a child who chants while bullets fly is not only a child." The boy bowed his head, silent. The rancher shifted, clutching his daughter closer. "She needs care. She can't travel. If you want me gone, I'll leave when she's strong enough, but not before." The circle held its silence. Then an older woman stepped from the shadows, her grey hair braided with beads, her eyes dark and steady. She looked at the girl, then at the boy. "Bring them," she said. "The child breathes because of him. The man breathes because of us. The fire is not yet finished." Two warriors moved to help, taking the girl gently from the boy's arms, carrying her toward the camp. The boy reached out instinctively. then stopped, his hand hovering in the air. The rancher laid a hand on his shoulder. "She'll be safe. Trust them." The boy looked up at him, eyes glistening with a mixture of doubt and something deeper, something like belonging. As they followed the warriors into the night, the rancher cast one last glance back at the smoking ruin of his homestead. His chest tightened. Years of work, gone in hours. But he felt no grief as sharp as the thought of Briggs's dying words. "You'll wish the boy had died tonight." Those words dug deep, coiled like a snake in his gut. The Apache camp was alive with movement. Women rushed to tend the wounded. Children clung to their mothers, wide-eyed at the blood-stained men returning from battle. Smoke hung heavy, torches flickering against the night sky. The girl was laid inside a tent, her shallow breaths steady. The boy knelt beside her, chanting softly, while the rancher sank down opposite him, head in his hands. The old woman entered, carrying a bowl of herbs. She began to work, pressing poultices to the girl's chest. Her eyes never left the rancher. "You carry loss like armor," she said quietly, "but armor cracks, and when it cracks, the sharp edges cut those you would protect." The rancher looked up, confusion and anger mixing in his smoke-smeared face. "I don't understand." She didn't explain. She simply pressed the herbs deeper, the smell filling the tent. "If you stay, the boy will be marked as one of us. If you leave, he will be marked as yours. Either way, his life is no longer his own. Can you bear that?" The rancher had no answer. The boy lifted his eyes, meeting both of theirs. His voice was calm, certain. "I chose the girl, I chose him. My life was taken when my family burned. Now it is given again." The words silenced the tent. The rancher felt the weight of them settle on his shoulders like chains and wings all at once. Outside, a horn blew low, echoing through the night. The warriors stiffened, eyes darting toward the dark horizon. The old woman's face tightened. "Not dawn yet. More riders." The rancher's heart sank. He rose, fists clenched, voice raw. "Briggs's kin." The boy's chant stopped. He turned, rattle clutched in his small hand, eyes sharp as flint. "Then we fight again." The rancher looked at him, and for the first time, fear and pride tangled in his chest, because the boy was no longer just a boy, and the war for his soul had only begun. The horn faded into silence, leaving only the crackle of distant fire. Every man in the Apache camp turned his head toward the horizon. The night was still, heavy with smoke and the smell of blood. Then came the sound, hoofbeats, many this time. Not the scattered rhythm of drunks or outlaws, but the steady pounding of men who rode with purpose. The wounded Apache leader, pale but still standing with support, hissed through his teeth, "Briggs's kin." The rancher gripped his rifle, thumb rubbing the trigger guard though it held no bullets. His stomach twisted. He had seen vendettas before. Cowboys didn't forgive. Families never forgot. The boy stood straight, rattle in hand, his face calm. "They will test us. We will answer." The rancher stared down at him, unsettled by the quiet certainty in his voice. "You're a child," he muttered, almost to himself. The boy didn't blink. "I am what is needed." Torches appeared first, swaying in the dark, a crooked line of light weaving closer. Then the riders, 15, maybe 20, hard faces marked by the fire's glow. At their head rode a broad man with Briggs's jaw, his mouth set in a line that promised nothing but death. He raised his voice across the stillness. "McAllister, you killed my brother. You think you can hide behind these redskins?" The rancher stepped forward, rifle across his chest, voice hard. "Your brother burned my home and tried to murder my daughter. He died because he deserved it." A growl rippled through the riders. The leader's eyes narrowed. "Then you'll bury the rest of your kin tonight." The Apache warriors moved into position, bows drawn, knives flashing in the torchlight. Women dragged children into the deeper shadows of the camp. The boy didn't move, standing tall in front of the rancher's tent. The rancher grabbed his shoulder, voice low and sharp. "Stay back." The boy shook his head. "If I stay back, she dies." The rancher's gut clenched. The girl's faint breathing carried from inside the tent. The cowboys spurred forward, shots cracked, sparks flashing in the night. Arrows answered, hissing through the dark, striking men from saddles. Horses screamed, colliding, hooves tearing into the dirt. The camp erupted into chaos. The rancher fired once, twice, grabbing cartridges from a fallen man, reloading with frantic hands. He dropped one rider, then another. Beside him, an Apache warrior drove a knife into a cowboy's belly, dragging him down with a snarl. But the cowboys pressed harder, numbers overwhelming. A rider smashed into the defensive line, pistol aimed straight at the tent. The boy stepped forward, chanting sharply, rattle snapping in rhythm. The horse reared, eyes rolling, throwing its rider before he could fire. The boy's chant cut through the screams, fierce and relentless. The rancher spun, heart pounding. He saw it clearly now, not luck, not chance. The boy's voice carried something that bent the night itself. "You're drawing them," the rancher breathed. The boy didn't stop. "Then you keep them from crossing." The words struck like an order. The rancher gritted his teeth, raising his rifle, planting his boots in the dirt. Every man who came near the boy fell by his bullets or his fists. Briggs's brother rode through the chaos, eyes blazing. He leveled his rifle at the boy, fury written across his face. You cursed him! You cursed us all!" The rancher bellowed, diving forward, tackling the horse's flank. The shot went high, bursting wood from a post. He yanked the cowboy from the saddle, both crashing to the ground in a swirl of dust. They grappled in the dirt, fists smashing, blood spraying. The rancher's knuckles split against bone, but Briggs's brother fought like a man possessed, rage giving him strength. The boy's chant rose louder, desperate now. The rattle shook, sharp and fast, a heartbeat of war. And then, the girl inside the tent gasped, louder than before. Her voice broke the night, weak but clear. "Father!" The rancher froze, eyes wide. Briggs's brother twisted, knife flashing, ready to drive it into his throat. But the boy was already moving. He dropped to his knees beside them, slamming the rattle against the dirt. The sound cracked like thunder. The horse nearby shrieked, rearing back and crashing into Briggs's brother, sending him sprawling. The rancher rolled free, seizing a rock and smashing it against the man's temple. Briggs's brother went limp, the knife slipping from his fingers. Silence fell, broken only by groans of the dying and the crackle of torches. The cowboys, still living, dragged their wounded back, eyes wide with fear, muttering curses as they fled into the night. The Apache warriors stood tall among the wreckage, bloodied but alive. The rancher staggered to his feet, chest heaving, staring at the boy. The child's chant slowed, then faded, the rattle lowering to his side. His eyes looked ancient, far older than his years. "You saved her," the rancher whispered, voice hoarse. The boy shook his head, gaze drifting to the tent. "She saved herself. I only gave her the path." The rancher's knees gave out. He dropped into the dirt, tears cutting clean lines through his soot-stained face. For the first time, the warriors didn't look at him as an outsider. They looked at him as a man bound to them, through blood, through fire, through a boy who carried a burden none of them could name. But even in victory, the rancher felt it. Briggs's shadow hadn't lifted. It had only grown deeper. The battlefield around the camp had grown quiet, the kind of silence that comes after storms. Smoke curled upward from dying torches, the ground littered with broken rifles, torn saddles, and men who would never rise again. The rancher staggered toward the tent, his boots crunching over the dirt. His heart hammered in his chest, fear and hope twisting together until he thought he'd break apart. Inside, the girl lay on a blanket, her chest lifting with shallow but steady breaths. Her face, once ghostly pale, carried a faint flush now. The boy sat cross-legged beside her, eyes half closed, rattle resting in his lap. When the rancher entered, the boy opened his eyes. They glowed faintly in the torchlight, old and weary. "She called you," the boy said quietly. "Her spirit heard your fight. She will live." The rancher fell to his knees, pressing a shaking hand against his daughter's forehead. It was warm. For the first time in days, it was warm. His throat closed, words failing him. He whispered anyway, raw and broken, "Thank you." The boy tilted his head. "You do not thank me. You thank the spirits who listened." The rancher didn't argue. He simply bowed his head, his tears dripping into the dirt at the girl's side. Behind him, the flap of the tent rustled. The Apache leader, wounded and pale, leaned on two men as he entered. His face was grim, his eyes sharp despite the blood soaking his side. "You see now," he rasped. "The boy is not ordinary. He carries what others cannot." The rancher looked up, his hand still clutching his daughter's. "And what does that mean for him?" The leader's silence was answer enough. His gaze lingered on the boy, something like reverence mixed with fear in his eyes. The boy broke the silence himself. "It means I do not belong to myself." The rancher's jaw tightened. He shook his head, fiercely. "You belong to no one. Not them. Not me. Not any spirit." The boy's expression softened, almost pitying. "Even you know that is not true." The words cut deep, and the rancher felt the weight of Briggs's last curse again, echoing like a ghost. "You'll wish the boy had died tonight." The Apache leader straightened with effort, pain making his voice harsh. "The fight tonight was not the last. Briggs's kin will not rest. His name carried weight in towns and camps. There will be others." The rancher lifted his rifle, still empty, gripping it like an oath. "Then they'll have to kill me before they touch him or her again." The boy studied him, silent, his small fingers running over the rattle. The sound of beads shifting inside seemed to whisper something the rancher couldn't hear. That night, as warriors set a watch around the camp, the rancher sat outside the tent, daughter sleeping inside, the boy beside him. He couldn't sleep. His mind kept circling back to what he had seen, the horse rearing at the boy's chant, Briggs's fury collapsing under his words, the strange way the girl had breathed again only when the boy's voice rose. None of it could be denied, none of it could be explained. The boy finally spoke, breaking the heavy silence. "You think Briggs cursed me?" But he cursed himself. The rancher turned, startled. "How do you know what he said?" The boy didn't look at him. His gaze was fixed on the flames of the nearest torch, unblinking. "Because men like him always say the same things before they die." The rancher had no answer. He simply stared at the boy, feeling the line between child and man blur more with each word. Dawn bled into the horizon, painting the sky with pale light. The camp stirred slowly, women cooking, men sharpening blades, the wounded groaning awake. Life resumed, but under it pulsed a current of unease. The old woman with grey braids approached, her eyes scanning the rancher and the boy. "The spirits have chosen," she said softly, "but they never choose without a price." The rancher bristled. "What price?" She only shook her head, as if pitying him. "You will see." And with that, she vanished into the camp, leaving her words to settle like ash. The rancher's daughter stirred inside the tent, her voice weak but steady. "Father!" He rushed to her side, his calloused hand closing around hers. She smiled faintly, her eyes fluttering open. For the first time, relief washed through him like clean rain. He bent close, whispering, "Rest now. You're safe." Her gaze shifted to the boy sitting nearby. "He saved me." The rancher looked at the child, saw the quiet strength in his small frame, the rattle resting in his lap. He nodded once. Yes, he did. But inside, unease coiled like a snake, because every life saved came with a shadow, and he could feel that shadow growing, stretching over all of them. That night had been victory, but it was not the end. It was only the beginning. The girl's strength returned with each passing day. She could sit up now, sip broth, even whisper soft words that melted the rancher's heart. Every breath she drew felt like a miracle, but the rancher never forgot what it had cost. The boy's chant, his unearthly calm, the way men fell when he raised the rattle. The Apache camp moved with wary rhythm. Scouts came and went, reporting riders seen at the edges of valleys. Every dawn the rancher expected the storm to break. It wasn't if, they all knew, it was when. On the fifth night, the scouts returned breathless, eyes wide. They're coming, not 20 this time. Closer to 50. Briggs's kin and others. They ride with banners now. They mean to wipe us out. The warriors gathered, faces grim. The wounded leader, still pale but standing, said what no one wanted to hear. "We cannot withstand them. Not with numbers like this. We must scatter, vanish into the hills." The rancher shook his head. His hand tightened on his daughter's shoulder. "She can't travel. Not yet." The leader's eyes were cold. "Then she dies when they arrive." The rancher's jaw clenched. "Over my dead body." The camp erupted in argument, voices clashing like steel. Some wanted to run, others wanted to fight. Through it all, the boy sat silent by the fire, the rattle across his knees. His eyes never lifted from the flames. At last he spoke, his voice cutting the noise. "I will stand." The camp fell silent. The rancher turned to him, eyes wide. "No. You're just a child." The boy's gaze didn't waver. "I was a child when fire took my family. I was a child when men beat me for begging. I was a child when they sold me. No more. I carry what they cannot. If I stand, they will fall." The rancher's throat burned. He wanted to deny it, to protect him, to shield him from the weight pressing on his small shoulders. But he had seen it, the power in his chant, the way horses bucked and men faltered. Denial was no longer possible. The Apache leader nodded slowly. "If the spirits chose him, then he must lead us." The rancher stepped forward, fists shaking. "No, he's not your weapon, he's not your shield." He turned to the boy, voice breaking. "You're not alone anymore. You have me. You have her." He pointed at his daughter, who watched with wide, frightened eyes. "We're your family now." The boy's lip trembled for the first time, but his voice stayed steady. "Family cannot stop what is coming." The rancher fell silent. The next dawn broke with dust clouds on the horizon. 50 riders, guns glinting in the early light, banners snapping in the wind. Briggs's brother rode at their head, bandaged but alive, eyes burning with vengeance. The rancher's heart dropped. He had left the man for dead, but the devil had risen. The riders surrounded the camp, circling, shouting curses. "Give us the boy," Briggs's brother bellowed. "Give him, and we'll leave the rest." The rancher stepped forward, rifle in hand, voice like steel. "You'll ride over my body before you touch him." The boy rose beside him, rattle lifted, chant beginning low and steady. The sound rolled across the camp like thunder building in the distance. The warriors formed a wall behind them, bows strung, knives gleaming. Women pulled children back into the shadows, eyes wide with terror. The cowboys charged. Gunfire split the morning. Horses thundered forward. The boys' chant rose, piercing the chaos, sharp and relentless. Horses bucked, some rearing, others colliding in panic. Cowboys fired wildly, bullets spraying through the camp. The rancher fired back, dropping one on then another, his body moving with desperate precision. He stayed close to the boy, every step a shield, every bullet spent for him. Briggs's brother broke through the line, pistol aimed straight at the boy's chest. The rancher's world slowed. He had one bullet left, one chance. His eyes locked on the boy, small, fragile, yet burning with a light no man could crush. His heart screamed with the truth. If he fired at Briggs's brother, he might save the boy. If he failed, the boy would die. But if he let the boy chant, if he gave him space, perhaps the spirits would bend the battle again. He chose. The rancher fired. The shot tore through the morning, striking Briggs's brother square in the chest. The man's scream choked off as he fell from his saddle, crashing to the dirt. The riders faltered, their charge breaking. The boy's chant surged like a storm unleashed. Horses screamed, throwing riders. Cowboys stumbled, eyes wild with fear, as the ground itself seemed to tremble under his voice. The riders broke. They fled into the hills, abandoning rifles, abandoning their dead, their fear greater than their fury. Silence fell. The rancher dropped to his knees, rifle slipping from his hands. His chest heaved. His heart felt ready to tear free. The boy stood tall beside him, the rattle stilling, his face calm but pale. The Apache warriors lifted their voices in a cry of triumph, but under it, the rancher heard something else, the cost. The boy's shoulders sagged, his small frame trembling. His eyes met the rancher's, and for the first time, they looked truly young again. The rancher caught him before he fell, pulling him tight to his chest. "I've got you," he whispered fiercely. "You're mine now. Whatever the spirits say, whatever the world says, you're mine." The boy closed his eyes, his lips parting in a whisper, "Then don't let me go." The rancher held him tighter, his tears falling freely. Because he knew the boy had saved them all. But he also knew Briggs's curse wasn't broken. It had only begun to show its teeth. The battlefield smelled of dust and blood. The cowboys had scattered, leaving their dead and wounded behind. The Apache camp stood battered but unbroken, firelight flickering against the jagged silhouettes of men too tired to cheer. The rancher knelt in the dirt, the boy limp in his arms, his daughter leaning weakly against him. He could feel the pounding of his own heart, but more than that, he felt the fragile rhythm of the boy's breath against his chest. It was steady, but faint. He whispered into his dark hair, voice trembling, "Stay with me. You hear? You're not leaving me now." The boy stirred, his lips curling into the ghost of a smile. "I'm here." Relief flooded him. He pressed his forehead to the boy's, closing his eyes. The world outside could rage on, right now. All that mattered was that this child lived. The Apache warriors gathered around, their leader pale but upright, his voice carrying a solemn weight. "Tonight we stood together. White man, Apache, child of spirits. We bled together. We won together." The rancher looked up, his face hard but wet with tears. "Then don't call him spirit, child. Don't call him a weapon. He's a boy. He's my boy now." Murmurs spread through the circle. Some eyes narrowed, others softened. The old woman stepped forward, her braids swaying, her gaze sharp as flint. She crouched before the rancher, her hand brushing the boy's cheek. "Do you understand what you claim?" she asked. The rancher held her stare. "I understand enough. He doesn't belong to your ghosts. He belongs here, with us, with me." The woman's face softened into something almost tender. "Then you must carry what he cannot. His path is heavy. If you walk it beside him, you will break or you will rise." The rancher's grip tightened. "Then I'll rise." For a moment, no one spoke. The fire crackled, the wounded groaned, children whispered from the shadows. Then slowly one warrior lowered his blade into the dirt. Another followed, then another. The leader raised his hand. "So it will be." The boy opened his eyes, weary but shining. He looked up at the rancher. "Father?" The word struck him harder than any bullet. His throat closed, his vision blurred. He kissed the boy's temple, whispering, "Son." The girl, still weak, leaned against her father and reached a trembling hand for the boy's. He took it, their fingers curling together, binding them without words. That night, under the endless stretch of stars, the rancher sat between them, his arms wrapped around both children. He felt the weight of Briggs's curse lingering in his mind. You'll wish the boy had died tonight, but he refused to let it rule him. Instead, he looked at the horizon, the rising glow of dawn, and thought of something else. Every curse could be broken, but it would not be broken by fear. It would be broken by love. The camp eventually settled. Warriors cleaned their weapons. Women sang soft songs to calm the little ones. The wounded drifted into uneasy sleep. But the rancher remained awake, holding his daughter and the boy, his heart heavy but steady. He knew more riders would come. He knew whispers would spread about the child who sang men into madness. He knew the weight of the path ahead. But he also knew this: he was not alone anymore. The boy breathed against his chest, the girl's hand in his. For the first time since his wife's death, he felt the shape of a family again. Not perfect, not safe, but real. When the first rays of dawn brushed the camp, painting the desert gold, the rancher whispered a vow only the morning could hear. "They'll come for us again. But when they do, I'll be ready. And as long as I breathe, no one will take you from me." The boy stirred, eyes fluttering open, his voice no louder than the wind. "Then we'll be ready together." The rancher smiled through the ache in his chest, pulling them both closer. Because in that moment, beneath the rising sun and the quiet hum of the earth, he believed it. Whatever came, they would face it. Not as strangers, not as enemies, but as a family. If this story touched you, take a moment to reflect. What does family truly mean if not sacrifice and love? Subscribe for more stories like this and let us know in the comments. Would you have had the courage to claim the boy as your son?